Senior Airman and Arapahoe alumni. Derek has pre-recorded his welcome video as he is currently stationed in Korea. Thank you, Derek.
Good morning, Warrior Nation, and welcome to today's Veterans Day ceremony. My name is Senior Airman Derek Money, class of 2017. I would like to take a moment to recognize all of our esteemed veterans in the audience today. To my brothers and sisters in arms from the Army, the Navy, the Marine Corps, the Coast Guard, the Space Force, and the Air Force, thank you. I'm recording this video from my duty station at Osan Air Base in South Korea, where everywhere I look, I'm reminded of the foundations that you laid before us. Our operational capabilities, the partnerships with our allies, and the culture of excellence that we strive for today is largely thanks to you. You, who raised your right hand and stepped into a world unknown with nothing more than your training and a will to serve. You, who were told to pack your things, spend years and months away from friends and families, and endure the harshest environments known to man. You, who spent their careers building up our troops to be the most dominant force on the planet. I can understand that when some of you look back on your time in the military, you may wonder, what was it all for? Well, let me tell you. Serving here in South Korea, we are surrounded by Russia, China, and North Korea. Three near-peer adversaries who threaten the safety and security of not only those at home, but millions around the world. With our current global political climate, there are always whispers and rumors of war on the horizon. However, the sacrifices that you made, the lessons you passed on to future generations of service members, and the foundations that you built have prepared us for the worst. So when the call to arms goes out, just know we're ready because of you. So on behalf of all current active duty, reserve, and National Guard service members, thank you for everything. For any young members of the audience who are considering joining the armed forces, look to the veterans sitting before you. They are symbols of strength and resilience. If someday you choose to join our ranks, honor their legacy by building upon it to continue to make our military the best in the world. Even if you do not decide to join the military, you can still honor those who have served by thanking them for their service. Lastly, I would like to thank the Arapahoe FCCLA chapter and Arapahoe Public Schools for hosting this event. Your hard work has once again created a wonderful occasion to honor our veterans and those who gave their lives in defense of our country. Thank you once again for attending today's ceremony, and I hope you have an amazing Veterans Day.
Please rise if you are able and remove cover as we help these individuals honor our great nation. Remain standing after the presentation for the national anthem sung by Arapahoe FCCLA vocalists and the Pledge of Allegiance led by our first graders. Color guard attention. Will the audience please remove cover, salute, or place your right hand over your heart. Color guard halt. Color guard prepare to post the colors. Color guard post the colors. 2. Color guard reform ranks. Color guard forward march. Color guard halt. Color guard dismissed. Audience, please remain standing for the national anthem and the Pledge of Allegiance. thrilled to have Mr. Dennis Sieber as our guest speaker today. Mr. Sieber grew up on a farm in the Lexington, Nebraska area. He enlisted in the Marine Corps in 1997 as a machine gunner. He graduated from the Naval Academy in 2003 and was commissioned as a Marine Corps officer. He completed flight school and served until 2012 as a helicopter pilot. After 4 combat deployments and an honorable discharge in 2012, he has been pursuing a career in education, teaching at UNK, Lexington High School, and now Elwood. Mr. Sieber and his wife Melinda live in Elwood. They have 2 children. Please help me in welcoming Captain Dennis Sieber.
Thanks for having me. I'm honored to be here. We're here to honor Veterans Day and our veterans. I asked myself, why am I up here? And I guess we'll get to that. This is the first time I've spoken about myself. I wrote about a bunch of stuff down, but I'm notorious for going off script, so don't let me go too long, okay? I'll start with what I wrote down because, you know, we're here for Veterans Day and I feel obligated to describe just a few facts about Veterans Day. It started towards the end of World War I when the armistice was signed that ended the fighting. And it took effect on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month in 1918. It was World War I was supposed to be the war that ended all wars, and the armistice ended that fighting. Unfortunately, we've had our fair share of wars since then. However, Veterans Day did originally have a purpose, and it still does. From the beginning, the purpose of Veterans Day, in their words, was that it should be a celebration to honor America's veterans for their patriotism, love of country, and willingness to serve and sacrifice for the common good. Now, the day has grown and changed over the years, but that purpose still holds true, and we still celebrate it on the 11th of November. I just hope that today maybe I can help make that purpose a little relevant to each of us in here. That purpose of patriotism, love of country, and willingness to serve. Okay, so that's where I get to the question of why me? Okay, thanks to Hayden, you guys know I'm from up north. I grew up on a farm. I'm just a farm kid from between Lexington and Cozad. I went to school in Lexington. I wasn't anything special. When I was in high school, you know, I went to a small country school. Is anybody in here country school kids before they closed country schools down? Okay, very small country school. And then when I went to 7th grade, I went to Lexington Junior High, and I had 140 kids in my class all of a sudden. So it was a big change. And so I was pretty shy. I played all the sports. I was an FFA, but I don't know. I didn't feel like anything special. One thing that probably started it, though, is a book, all right? I was the last of 8 siblings, so I had 5 brothers, 2 sisters. They were all older than me, and they were all farm kids, and I noticed that they read a lot, and I thought, why in the world are they reading? I wasn't a reader. And so one day I picked up one of the books that they read. They read Lewis and Moore books, and I don't know if you guys know Lewis and Moore, but he's a Western writer. But I read the book, and it kind of stuck with me. What really stuck with me is Lewis and Moore has a biography in the back of each of his books. And then you can see it's a whole page of fine print long, and I'm hoping I can see the print today. But I want to read a little passage from it, one little part of it that stuck with me all these years. As they're talking about Lewis and Moore, it says, spurred by an eager curiosity and desire to broaden his horizons, Mr. Moore left home at the age of 15, enjoyed a wide variety of jobs, including seaman, lumberjack, elephant handler, skinner of dead cattle, miner, an officer in the Transportation Corps during World War II. During his yondering days, he also circled the world on a freighter, sailed a dhow on the Red Sea, was shipwrecked in the West Indies, and stranded in the Mojave Desert. He won 51 of 59 fights as a professional boxer and worked as a journalist and lecturer. And I thought, holy cow, how could one person have done all those things? And I also thought, what does he know? What does he know about life because he's done all those things? And I was probably just a 6th or 7th grader at that time, and I thought, I want a resume like that. And that's kind of what my springboard was. I wanted to see the world. I wanted to do things. My dad was a Marine in the Korean War, and so I talked to him and I talked to my mom about joining the military, and my dad was pretty hesitant. And so time went on, and it was undecided what I was going to do, and I ended up going to college for a year in Lincoln. And kind of found out that college wasn't really for me at that time. And then Dad was, of course, a little more willing to let me sign up. And so I did. And so that's what the beginning of my understanding of patriotism, love of country, and willingness to serve and sacrifice for the common good began. As I decided I was going to try to get that resume that Lewis Moore had or something like that. So I went to boot camp, and it was tough, and I enlisted. And of course my dad was a machine gunner, and so I wanted to be a machine gunner, right? Because that's what my dad did. And so what I started to learn was the power of saying the word yes, okay? Sometimes you have to be careful because you get exactly what you ask for. How many people think a machine gun sounds like a lot of fun? Right? Okay. Guess what? They're really heavy, and you have to carry a lot of bullets, okay? So I did that for a while. And I thought, holy cow, I'm just a little kid from Nebraska. This thing's way too big for me. But I learned a lot. Did my first combat tour. We went to Kuwait. This is in the 90s, so it was before September 11th. So everything was a little more relaxed, a lot quieter. But we did go into Kuwait, and we manned the border between Iraq and Kuwait. And the Iraqi Republican Guard used to come down and drive around and mess with us all the time. But there really wasn't a whole lot going on while we were there. We also went to the Red Sea, Eritrea, and Ethiopia. They got into a little fight, and so we went there. We went to Bahrain, and we taught the Bahraini military a bunch of stuff about warfare and nuclear, biological, and chemical decontamination and weird stuff like that. And then the neat part, though, is because this was before September 11th, we got to see a lot of places on the way there and on the way back. So we left California, we went to Hawaii, we went to Hong Kong for New Year's, we went to Singapore and trained in the rainforest, we went to Thailand and sat on the beach. On the way back, we stopped in Bali, which is an island out there kind of by the Philippines, and we went to Australia for a week, back to Hawaii, and came home. And while all this happened, I think my platoon commander could tell that I didn't really enjoy carrying that machine gun around all the time. And every time the planes or the helicopters would fly over, I was looking at him, and he asked me if I wanted to apply for the Naval Academy. And so, again, I said yes. And we went through the whole application process pretty much while we were on deployment. And to go to the Naval Academy, it's this huge booklet of application you got to fill out, pass tests, pass a physical. You have to get a congressional nomination, and then because I was already enlisted, I had to get a presidential nomination. I ended up getting Ben Nelson nominated me from Nebraska, and President Clinton nominated me to go to the Naval Academy. So as soon as we got back from the deployment, we went to the Naval Academy in Annapolis and started there. It's like a college. It's a lot of class. It's a 4-year school. It was hard. But the cool thing was we got to do really neat stuff in the summer. They called it summer training. And we did things like, what are some of the things I got to do? I got to spend a couple weeks on a destroyer in the Pacific Ocean with the Navy. I got to sleep overnight on a nuclear submarine, and I slept between 2 of the big nuclear missiles that they shoot out of there. It was kind of weird being underwater. Didn't think I'd want to do that for much more than a couple days, but I got to fly with an F-18 squadron, and we got to go on a little bombing run. I don't know if you guys have seen the new Top Gun Maverick movie, but when they're training and they drop those fake bombs or the smoke bombs on the target out in the desert, that's where we got to go fly and do that. It was really cool. Yep, I got sick. Those things will beat you up pretty well. But it was a lot of fun. It was a great experience. Met a lot of people, made a lot of connections, and then graduated in 2003 and was commissioned as an officer. And they asked me if I wanted to fly. And again, I started to learn the power of saying yes, because little farm kid from Nebraska who didn't ever expect to do anything very amazing, just saying yes got me into all of these things. Sometimes I regretted it. But most of the time it was really good. And so I said yes and went to flight school, Pensacola, Florida, Corpus Christi, Texas, back to North Carolina, and they put me in, it's called a CH-53 Super Stallion. It's a helicopter with 3 jet engines, 7 blades. This thing's humongous. The circle the blades are in are 99.5 feet around. It's almost like flying a corn truck. And we can probably lift a corn truck. I think we can lift 76,000 pounds. This thing's huge, right? The bad thing about it is it burns 4,000 pounds of diesel every hour, so the fuel bill is pretty high. But we did that. I met my wife while I was at the Naval Academy in flight school. We got pregnant with our first child, and then they asked if I wanted to go to my first duty station in Hawaii. And of course, that yes seemed really easy to say, right? So we packed up and moved to Hawaii, and I was flying CH-53s. Melinda was very pregnant when we got to Hawaii, and I don't know if you guys probably all know Hawaii's clear in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. When we got there, we were getting ready. This is after September 11th now, so everything was busy. They wanted us to go to Iraq, and so Melinda had my son Julian, and 2 weeks later we packed up and left her there for about 9 months, 10 months to go to Iraq. So a shout out to military families at the same time. A lot of times we don't speak up about military families, but they go through a lot of hard times too. And so she was in Hawaii with a newborn and our first child while I was in Iraq. So in Iraq, this is another interesting thing about being a pilot in the Marine Corps. Pilot stuff makes up only about 10% of your time. The other 90% of the time they have collateral duties and extra jobs for you to do. So while I was in that unit and during that deployment, I was also the family readiness officer, which meant we had about 150 Marines and a few sailors in our squadron, and so I coordinated all the events and all the parties and all the barbecues and things like that, and then dealt with any issues that arose, right? So that was a big job, especially going on a combat deployment. I got the chance to be the legal officer and the administrative officer, which is a lot of paperwork. But we went to Iraq and we flew a lot once we got there. Those jobs kind of fell away, and then it was pilot stuff. I remember when we first got there, the unit that we were relieving or replacing took us around and showed us the country, and we flew everywhere at night because we had night vision goggles and could see pretty well, and the enemy didn't have night vision goggles. So it was nice to fly at night. However, we had this huge helicopter that was really loud, and so they would shoot at us from the ground blindly because they couldn't see us. And so I remember those first couple nights watching all the tracers flying around, and it was fairly scary. But after about a week of it, I realized they're not ever going to hit me. They never hit us, right? And so that's not really, just because they didn't doesn't mean they couldn't. And so I probably shouldn't have got comfortable, but we got comfortable. We stayed comfortable because it happened every night, and I guess you get used to that. We were really lucky, and we brought everyone home that we took. And I think that's probably the best part of that deployment. What did I learn about saying yes there? This is where I learned one of the biggest lessons of my life. To go fly, we would show up at 7 p.m. to work. All of the pilots would go into the ready room, and we'd have to brief the flight. And that means the intelligence brief, the weather brief, the plan, everybody involved. It takes about an hour. Then you have about an hour to go get all your gear and your armor and go out to the helicopter, and you have to pre-flight the helicopter. And these things are huge. You have to check all the nuts and bolts, check all the engines, check all the hoses, check all the fluid levels. It takes about a half hour. Every night we flew 4 helicopters at a time, and so we had 4 to do. And it was tough to get everything done between 7 and our launch time of 9. But we couldn't go earlier than 7 because we had a 12-hour, we had to stay within 12 hours, and we usually didn't get done until 7 in the morning. So what I started doing on days that I wasn't flying, instead of just sitting around twiddling my thumbs, a friend of mine and I started going out to the helicopters and pre-flighting them for the pilots that were going to fly and doing it early. We didn't have to, and it was a lot of work, and it was hot and dirty and kind of miserable, but we started doing that. And for a while, it was just me and sometimes one of my friends when we weren't flying. But what I learned was after a while, everybody started to realize we were doing that. We're trying to help. And pretty soon more people would start to show up. And then when it was my turn to fly, I'd get out there and my helicopter would be pre-flighted by somebody else. And so it kind of spread, right? It was kind of like, I don't know, it was saying yes when somebody needed help and then watching that spread so that everybody was helping each other. It was a really good thing. And really, I've always kept that in my mind, that if you do the extra work and you say yes to help and you don't complain, pretty soon everybody else is going to do everything for you. They want to help you and they want to be with you and do things together. So that was a really good lesson to learn on that trip. As soon as we got back, the Marine Corps asked us if we wanted to go to a ground tour in 29 Palms. 29 Palms is a desert base in the middle of nowhere, and there's this urban legend that as Marines drive to 29 Palms, their wives cry in the car all the way there because it's a terrible place to go. But they needed somebody to go, somebody that was a pilot, to go to a wing support squadron. That's about 1,100 Marines and sailors, and do a job there. And so we said yes, and we decided to go out and do it. When I got there, I was blown away again. A wing support squadron, like I said, 1,100 people. We had, basically we run airfields. So we build airfields, secure airfields, run the fuel, the hangars, build stuff, do utilities, purify water, everything. And so we got there. We have an entire hospital staff, about 150 Navy personnel that were doctors, nurses, medics, corpsmen, everything. We took everybody to Iraq again. Melinda was pregnant with my second child, and then we left for Iraq. In Iraq, we managed all the airfields and all the LZs. I was the platoon commander for the military police platoon and for the explosive ordnance disposal. And when we got there, it was kind of weird. There wasn't really anything for them to do as groups, so we ended up breaking them into teams, 7 teams. That when somebody else ran into an IED or found a weapons cache, they would call us and we would go out and take care of it. Either blow up the IED, blow up the weapons cache, or collect stuff. So it was a big learning experience. We were always going. I think you think 16 to 20 hour days are long, but that was pretty regular. We were there for a long time, did a lot of stuff. Hit one IED, it blew our tire up. Nobody really got seriously hurt. Again, we were blessed and we brought everybody home. And saying yes for that, I got to learn a lot of neat things about being in command. There's some really great perks about being in command. You get to take care of your young Marines, your young people. We had one thing that we did, I still feel like it's a really good thing we did in Iraq, is, I don't know if you guys know this, but Iraqi doctors, male, cannot treat female patients, okay? It's a cultural thing. Well, I had an entire hospital staff, and we have plenty of female doctors and female nurses. So we built a hospital. We were right between Ramadi and Fallujah. We built and secured a hospital. We staffed it with our female staff, and we started treating female patients. And it took off, and while we were there, they started training some of the Iraqi. They had Iraqi women that were medically trained but had to practice outside of the country. They started bringing them back so they could man that hospital. I never heard if it's still going or not. I hope it is. I thought that was something really good that we did. But we got back, we wrote our Marines up for awards, also had to run court-martials, so there's good things and bad things about being in charge. But overall, it was a pretty neat experience. And as you're probably learning, being in the Marine Corps, you don't get to sit still very long. As soon as we got back, we had my daughter. We had our second there in the desert in 29 Palms. And then we got orders to move to North Carolina because they were standing up a new helicopter squadron to go to the Mediterranean Sea. And we said yes. And so we went to North Carolina. And this was, I don't know if you guys remember, 2010, when there was trouble in Libya. And Libya was run by a guy named Muammar Gaddafi. Okay, Gaddafi was like one of those old school terrorist type guys, kind of like Bin Laden, but everybody recognized his name a little bit, and his son. And so there were rebels trying to overthrow them as a government, and we backed the rebels, or the United Nations did. And so we went and sat in the Mediterranean, and we flew 4 helicopters and we flew the TRAP mission, which is Tactical Recovery of Aircraft and Personnel. So while the United Nations planes were flying over Libya and missions in Libya, if anybody went down behind enemy lines, we were the ones that would go in and get those people out. We'd get the aircraft out and destroy the aircraft if we couldn't get it out. So we did this for a long, long time while that whole thing went on. It ended, it was resolved, we set up the embassy in Libya, and then we got pulled away from Libya and went to Yemen and Djibouti and Mogadishu, and then we made our way back. But when we were in Mediterranean, we got to see a lot of places, do a lot of things. They put me in some new jobs. I was a captain at that time. They put me in the Director of Safety and Standardization, which is normally a major's job. And so, I mean, we were short-staffed. I was learning a lot of things. My resume was getting thicker. Okay, and then we made it back. And when we got back, that whole trip was almost 12 full months on a ship. And according to the Navy captain that was on our ship, it was the longest shipboard deployment that Marines and sailors were on together since World War II. Now, I don't know if that has any, I don't know how true that is. That was out of the word of the captain of the ship. But it was, and it did feel like a long time. But we got back, and then we decided to come home to Nebraska, back to the farm, and help Mom on the farm. Okay, but saying yes didn't stop there, okay? I wanted to write. I started getting a master's degree at UNK, and right before my second year, the English department, dean of the English department pulled me in and said, hey, we lost some of our professors and we don't have enough people to teach all the English classes. I need you to teach an English class this year, 2 English classes. I'd never thought about teaching in my life, and I had 2 weeks to become a college English professor. And I thought, okay, yes. Standing outside that door, the first time that I was going to have students, you know, was the scariest thing I've ever done in my life. Okay, there's something about Marines have to listen to you when you're talking to them, right? That's their job. College students don't have to listen to you. I don't know, it scared me to death. But I did it. Worked my way through it, we did that year, and I kept teaching. I taught at UNK for 3 years and loved it. And then somebody said, well, why don't you get your teaching certificate? I said, yes. Got my teaching certificate. Taught at Lexington High School for a year, moved down to Elwood. Somebody said, why don't you get your administrator certificate? I said, yes. And so I went and got that one too, and now I'm working on the next one. And so I guess the point is that I'm trying to get to is we're talking about Veterans Day, and we're talking about patriotism, love of country, and willingness to serve and sacrifice. Well, I think America is the best country in the world. A lot of times that gets overlooked with all the political stuff and the arguments and the fighting. But go travel the world and then come back and realize all those things we're fighting about are really, I don't want to call them silly, but they're gravy, right? They're icing on the cake. We have the best country in the world, right? And so I feel comfortable I can get from Arapahoe back to Elwood after this, you know, we're in a good country. And so I'm proud to be an American, and I'm proud of our country, and I'm glad that we have the opportunities that we have. Willingness to serve and sacrifice, I think that's the big one, and I think that comes down to saying yes when somebody needs help, right? We have lots of veterans in the room. Every one of them has said yes, all right? They put their lives on hold, they've donated their time, they put themselves in danger, they've been away from family, they said yes to help out the country because of their love and patriotism for the country, but also for everybody in this room, okay? And like the senior airman, Moni, that was on the video said, even if you're not thinking about joining the military, that duty to serve and to help people in need, right? That's saying yes. So that's what I think the relevance of Veterans Day is, to honor our veterans as examples of the types of people we all want to be. So circling back to the beginning, that all started because of a silly book, all right? So those of you back there that don't like to read, be careful, because these books can get you in trouble sometimes and change your whole life. But honestly, they're good. So my kickoff point was that I wanted a biography like Louis L'Amour. I think my resume is pretty good. but this is the first time I've ever talked about it. And I think you'll notice that with the veterans too. We don't talk about that stuff very often. And I wondered about that, and I thought, why do we not talk about that? Why do I feel a little uncomfortable talking about myself? And I think it's because we're so used to saying yes and helping people that that's what we're looking for, is how we can say yes next and how we can keep helping people. So take that on board. When you talk to a veteran, ask them what they learned and what their experiences were, and I'm sure they're going to be glad to talk to you about it. Again, thank you for having me. Happy Veterans Day, and it's been a great program. Thank you.
And then I'm going to go get the video ready. Okay. So after this will be the video, so you can zoom back in for the video. Thanks.
in front of the gym as we view a tribute video to our area service members created by Hayden Gary, our FCCLA Junior Advisor.
A lot of things. I think everybody that goes into the military goes into the military for different reasons, but it changes you. You create a brotherhood of people from across the United States. That's the 1%ers. You know, 1% actually go and serve the country. So to me, being a veteran is very important because the brotherhood that I have been able to establish. It's really interesting because when you get into it, get to your training stuff, where you come from, who you are, what color you are, doesn't make any difference. We all become one brotherhood, one mission in mind, and just got to do it. So that's what it means to be brotherhood.
To all of our area service members,
Veterans Day is important to me because of the people that served to build a free country. It's been important to me before I even became a veteran. I have a grandfather that was in World War II and I was Vietnam. And now I have a son in the Marine Corps. So this could be a lot.
because my Uncle Tim and Uncle Sam fought.
Veterans Day is important to me because I've had friends and family serve. Thank you to all of our community service members.
Thank you for serving.
Veterans Day is important to me because my dad taught me the importance of the sacrifices and contributions of military veterans and why I'm here today.
Thank you to all of our veterans.
Veterans Day reminds me of the sacrifices that men and women have given for our country, for their family and friends, and just to keep us safe each and every day.
Because my uncles fought for freedom.
In June of 2022, I had the opportunity to go to the American Military Cemetery in Luxembourg. And so that's a little tiny spot kind of in the middle of Germany. If you are a history buff, you know that that is where the Battle of the Bulge took place. So the Battle of the Bulge is one of the single largest and bloodiest single battles in World War II. So we had the opportunity to go there. And General George Patton is actually buried there. But so is 5,600 World War II GIs. And so as I walked through the rows of crosses, I looked at their names and where they were from and their ages and when they died. And so a lot of them died on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day and New Year's Day. And I thought, there was 5,600 young men who had their whole lives in front of them until they didn't. And there was 5,600 moments that had to be told that their sons weren't coming home again. And so I'm the mom of an active Air Force, the servicemen. And so that hit my heart pretty hard to think about all of that. And so my husband served, my father-in-law, I have two in-law kiddos that serve, and so there's never been a day that I haven't been reminded to be and appreciate the self-sacrifice, the time, and the effort that our military service personnel put in on behalf of our country. So, on behalf of myself and my family, I would like to thank everyone for their service.
Thank you for your bravery.
Veterans Day is important to me because my grandpa taught me the importance of appreciating our military members.
Veterans Day is important to me because I have had my brother and sister enlisted. They have taught me the importance of active duty members and their contribution to our country.
Happy Veterans Day!
At the conclusion of taps, please rise as the Scout Troops 193 and 339 Color guard attention. Color guard forward march. Color guard halt. Will the audience please remove cover, salute, or place your hand over your heart? Color guard retire the colors. Color guard reform ranks. Color guard forward march. Color guard halt. Color guard dismissed. Audience may be seated.
What an honor it has been today to celebrate so many of our area veterans and their families on this wonderful Monday, November 11th. We thank each of you for being here with us today in celebration. At the conclusion of the program, we invite all area service members and their families to the Commons area for muffins and coffee provided by the Arapahoe FCCLA chapter. Thank you again, and we wish you all a happy Veterans Day. Elementary students and teachers, start making your way back to the classroom. High school students to follow. Thank you.